Captain Sarah stared at the massive holographic display in Earth's primary military command center. The transmission had arrived 3 hours ago, broadcast across every communication channel in known space. The image showed 10 million human colonists from the 442B settlement lined up in endless rows, their faces filled with terror. The alien standing before them was tall and reptilian, with smooth scales that shifted from green to purple in the artificial light. Its 4 arms gestured dramatically as it spoke in perfect English, its voice carrying a tone of supreme arrogance. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the alien had said. "I am commander of the Empire. You see before you 10 million of your kind who dared to settle in our territory without permission. Consider this a lesson in respect." Sarah had watched in horror as massive energy weapons fired into the crowd. The screams had been cut short as the transmission ended with the image of empty ground where the colonists had stood moments before. Now, 3 hours later, Earth's entire military leadership sat in stunned silence around the war table. Admiral, head of the Sol Defense Force, was the first to speak. "Intelligence reports confirm it. The colony is completely gone. 10 million people vaporized in seconds." His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly as he set down the data pad. General leaned forward. "What do we know about these?" Dr. James, Earth's leading, activated his own display. "They're relatively new to this sector. First contact was reported by Outer Rim Scouts about 6 months ago. They claim ownership of roughly 50 star systems, including the one where we established the colony." "Claim ownership?" Sarah's voice was sharp. "That system was empty when our survey teams arrived. According to it belongs to them by right of conquest. They apparently defeated the previous inhabitants centuries ago." Doctor scrolled through his data. "They're technologically advanced, but not beyond our understanding. Their main advantage seems to be numbers and aggressive expansion." Admiral stood and walked to the massive star chart dominating one wall. "How many ships do they have?" "Conservative estimates put their fleet at around 2,000 vessels. They've been expanding rapidly by absorbing smaller civilizations." Doctor paused. "The concerning part is their methodology. They don't negotiate. They don't offer terms. They simply announce their claim and then enforce it." Sarah studied the tactical data flowing across her screen. As the leader of Earth's first contact protocols, she had always hoped humanity's entrance into galactic politics would be more diplomatic. The reality was proving far more brutal than anyone had anticipated. "What about their allies?" General asked. "Who else is in their empire?" "That's where it gets interesting," Doctor replied. "They don't have allies in the traditional sense. They have subjects. Every species they encounter either submits completely or gets wiped out. There's no middle ground." Admiral turned back to the group. "So we're dealing with a civilization that views any resistance as grounds for total destruction." "It appears so. The transmission they sent wasn't just a declaration of war. It was a demonstration of what they consider standard procedure." Sarah felt a cold anger building in her chest. 10 million innocent people had been murdered simply to make a point. The colonists on 442B had been farmers, scientists, artists, and children. They had been building a new life on a distant world, contributing to humanity's peaceful expansion into the galaxy. "What response have other civilizations made to expansion?" she asked. Doctor's expression grew grim. "Most submit immediately. The few that have resisted have been completely destroyed. They are very efficient at what they do." The room fell silent again as everyone processed the implications. Earth was facing an enemy that had never experienced serious resistance, had never been forced to negotiate, and had never shown mercy to those who opposed them. Admiral activated the main communication system. "I'm calling an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. Every nation, every military command, every resource we have needs to be mobilized." "What's our response going to be?" General asked. Sarah stood up, her decision crystallizing as she spoke. "We're going to show them exactly what happens when you massacre 10 million humans." Over the next 48 hours, Earth transformed. The Global Defense Council met in continuous session, and for the first time in decades, every nation on the planet agreed on a single course of action. They had made their intentions clear, and humanity's response would be equally unambiguous. Doctor, head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Research Division, presented her findings to the assembled military leaders. We've been monitoring their ships since the first scout reports came in. Their shielding technology is impressive, but it has one critical weakness. She activated a holographic display showing the internal structure of a warship. Their shields operate on a rotating frequency pattern. It's actually quite elegant, but it creates a brief vulnerability window every 3.7 seconds. How brief? Admiral asked. Approximately 0.2 seconds. Not long enough for conventional weapons, but our new plasma lance technology could potentially exploit it. Sarah leaned forward to study the data. What kind of damage are we talking about? Complete hull penetration if we can hit during the vulnerability window. The problem is timing. We'd need to coordinate strikes across their entire fleet simultaneously. General frowned. How are we supposed to coordinate that level of precision across interstellar distances? Doctor smiled for the first time in days. We've been working on quantum entanglement communication for military applications. It's not ready for full deployment, but we have enough prototype units to equip a small strike force. Admiral studied the technical specifications. How small? 50 ships maximum. That's all the quantum communicators we have available. The Admiral looked around the room. 50 ships against 2,000. Those aren't encouraging odds. Actually, Doctor interjected, they might be their own worst enemy here. Their standard formation puts their entire fleet in close proximity. They've never had to worry about coordinated attacks because no one has ever had the technology to exploit their shield weakness. Sarah began to see the possibilities. You're saying we could potentially take out their entire fleet if we can get close enough? Theoretically, yes, but it would require perfect timing and complete surprise. The next week was a blur of activity as Earth's military-industrial complex shifted into overdrive. Factories that had been producing civilian goods were converted to warship production. Scientists who had been working on peaceful research projects were reassigned to weapons development. The entire planet united behind a single goal. Captain found herself in command of the strike force designated Task Force Retribution. The 50 ships under her command represented the most advanced technology humanity had ever produced, built in record time by a civilization that had suddenly remembered how to fight. The quantum communicators were installed and tested. The plasma lance weapons were calibrated to exploit the shield frequency. Most importantly, the strike force crews were trained to operate with split-second precision. As the fleet prepared for departure, Sarah received a final intelligence briefing from Doctor. They have been monitoring our communications. They know we're coming. Do they know how we're coming? That's unclear. They've made no changes to their formation or tactics. Commander has been broadcasting messages claiming that Earth will be made an example of just like the colony. Sarah nodded grimly. The arrogance might work in humanity's favor. They had never faced an opponent capable of exploiting their weaknesses, and their confidence in their own superiority could blind them to the danger. The departure ceremony was broadcast globally. Representatives from every nation spoke about the courage of the volunteers and the justice of their cause. But Sarah remembered most clearly the words of Maria Santos, whose daughter had been among the colonists on 442B. My little girl wanted to be a teacher on the New World, Maria had said, her voice steady despite her tears. She wanted to help build something beautiful in the stars. These monsters took that away from her, from all of them, make them pay for what they did. As Task Force Retribution left Earth's solar system, Sarah looked back at the blue marble that had given birth to their species. Humanity had spread to dozens of worlds, but Earth remained the heart of their civilization. The thought they could intimidate humans by murdering civilians. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The journey to the fleet's position took 18 days. During that time, the crews ran countless simulations, perfecting their timing and coordination. The quantum communicators allowed instant communication across the entire task force, eliminating the light-speed delays that normally plagued fleet operations. As they approached the target system, long-range sensors confirmed Doctor's analysis. The entire fleet was gathered in a tight formation around their command ship. 2,000 vessels, representing the military might of an empire that had conquered dozens of civilizations. All ships prepare for final approach, Sarah announced through the quantum communication network. Remember, we get one shot at this. Make it count. They detected the approaching human fleet when they were still several million kilometers away. Commander's response was broadcast on all frequencies, his voice filled with the same arrogant confidence they had heard in the original Massacre transmission. "Foolish humans," he announced. "You bring 50 ships against 2,000? Your species' stupidity exceeds even our expectations. We will destroy your pathetic fleet and then finish what we started with your—" Sarah didn't respond. There was nothing to say. The time for words had passed when 10 million innocent people died on live broadcast. The human fleet approached in standard formation, their weapons powered down, appearing to pose no immediate threat. They held their position, confident in their overwhelming numerical superiority. At a distance of 50,000 kilometers, Sarah gave the final order. "All ships quantum sync in 3, 2, 1, mark." 50 plasma lances fired simultaneously, their beams timed to arrive at the exact moment of the shield vulnerability. The coordination was perfect, made possible by technology they had never encountered and therefore couldn't defend against. The results exceeded even the most optimistic projections. The plasma beams punched through the shields at precisely the right moment, penetrating deep into the heart of each targeted ship. The energy release from 2,000 ships being destroyed almost simultaneously lit up the entire system like a new star. When the glare faded, the fleet was gone. Nothing remained but expanding clouds of debris and the shocked silence of an empire that had just realized it was no longer invincible. Sarah stared at the empty space where the enemy fleet had been. 10 million humans had been avenged in less than 30 seconds. They had learned what happened when they underestimated humanity, but the lesson had come too late to save them. "All ships return to Earth," she announced. "Mission accomplished." The journey home would give her time to think about what came next. The Empire was leaderless, their military completely destroyed. But there were other threats in the galaxy, other civilizations that might think humanity was weak because they preferred peace to conquest. Today had proven them wrong. Humanity could be peaceful, but they were not weak, and anyone who threatened innocent humans would learn the same lesson they had just received. The price of that lesson would be absolute. 3 months after the destruction of the fleet, Earth had become the most talked-about world in known space. The news of humanity's victory had spread through diplomatic channels, trade networks, and refugee communications with shocking speed. A species that most galactic civilizations had never heard of had suddenly eliminated one of the region's most feared military powers. Ambassador Lisa Park stood in the reception hall of the Galactic Mediation Center on station, watching as representatives from dozens of species approached her with mixtures of curiosity, fear, and desperate hope. The space station orbited a neutral star system and served as the unofficial diplomatic hub for this sector of the galaxy. "Ambassador Park," came a melodic voice behind her. She turned to see Ambassador Ra, the representative of the Cetacean Alliance. The whale-like being floated in a specialized environmental suit filled with the saline solution her species required. "We must speak privately." Lisa nodded and followed Ra to one of the private meeting chambers. The Cetacean Alliance controlled 12 star systems and had been one of the few civilizations to successfully resist expansion through a combination of clever diplomacy and strategic retreat. "My government has instructed me to offer you our most sincere gratitude," Ra said once they were alone. "They had been pressuring our outer colonies for months. We were preparing for evacuation when news of their destruction reached us." "We didn't do it for recognition," Lisa replied carefully. "We did it because they murdered 10 million of our people." "Yes, we know about the broadcast. It was shown throughout the sector as a demonstration of power." Ra's large eyes reflected a deep sadness. "Many of us watched those innocent humans die and felt ashamed that we could do nothing to prevent it." Lisa felt a surge of emotion but kept her expression neutral. She was still learning the complex dynamics of galactic politics, but one thing was becoming clear. The massacre had affected more than just humanity. "What is the current situation in former territories?" she asked. "Chaos mostly, the ruled through fear and overwhelming force. With their fleet gone and their leadership dead, their subject species are either declaring independence or falling into civil war." Ra paused. "Some are asking for human protection." This was news to Lisa. Earth's government had been so focused on the immediate aftermath of their victory that they hadn't fully considered the power vacuum their actions had created. What kind of protection are they seeking? Military alliance, mostly. The conquered 43 different species over the past 2 centuries. Many of those civilizations are now free for the first time in generations, but they're terrified that another aggressive empire will move in to fill the void. Before Lisa could respond, her communication device chimed with an urgent message from Earth. She read it quickly, then looked up at Ra with a troubled expression. "I'm afraid I need to cut this meeting short. Something's happening." The message from Earth was brief but alarming. Delegation from Hegemony approaching Sol system, arriving in 6 hours. Prepare for immediate return. The Hegemony was one of the largest political entities in known space, controlling over 200 star systems through a combination of military might and economic dominance. They were known for their sophisticated diplomacy and patient approach to expansion. They rarely engaged in open warfare, preferring to absorb civilizations through trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and gradual integration. Lisa's transport ship made the journey from station to Earth in record time, arriving just as the Hegemony delegation entered Sol system. The alien ships were massive, elegant vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had built. There were only 3 of them, but each one was easily the size of a space station. The lead ship requested permission to approach Earth orbit, following proper diplomatic protocols. The message was delivered in flawless English by a being that appeared on the communication screen as a tall, slender humanoid with pale blue skin and large, multifaceted eyes. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am first speaker of the Hegemony Council. We come seeking dialogue regarding recent events in this sector." Admiral, now serving as Earth's primary military advisor to the civilian government, watched the proceedings from the command center. The mood was tense. Unlike the Hegemony couldn't be defeated through a single surprise attack. Their military was distributed across multiple sectors, and their technology was arguably more advanced than humanity's. President Sarah, who had been elected in an emergency session following the crisis, stood in the main reception chamber of the International Space Station. The meeting with the Hegemony delegation would be humanity's first major diplomatic encounter since becoming a galactic power. First speaker materialized through their advanced transporter technology, accompanied by 2 other Hegemony officials. The aliens were even more imposing in person, standing nearly 3 meters tall with a presence that suggested centuries of experience in galactic diplomacy. "President," said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in her bones, "we bring greetings from the Hegemony Council and congratulations on your recent victory over the Empire." "Thank you, first speaker. Earth welcomes your delegation." Gestured gracefully with one of his 4 arms. "Your species has accomplished something remarkable that had resisted all diplomatic overtures for decades. Their sudden and complete destruction has created significant opportunities for peace in this region." President maintained her diplomatic composure, but she could sense an underlying purpose behind the Hegemony's visit. "We're pleased that the threat they represented has been eliminated." Indeed, however, such a dramatic shift in regional power creates certain instabilities. The Hegemony has found that civilizations new to galactic prominence sometimes require guidance in managing their expanding influence. There it was, the offer that everyone had been expecting. The Hegemony wanted to bring humanity into their sphere of influence before Earth could become a rival power. "What kind of guidance did you have in mind?" President asked. "Membership in the Hegemony offers many advantages. Protection from hostile forces, access to advanced technologies, profitable trade relationships, and most importantly, the wisdom of civilizations that have navigated galactic politics for." Ambassador Park, who had arrived just in time for the meeting, stepped forward. "And what would such membership require from humanity?" His multifaceted eyes shifted to focus on her. Integration of military forces under Hegemony command structure, adoption of standard Hegemony economic and legal frameworks, gradual cultural alignment with Hegemony values and practices. President exchanged glances with Admiral. The offer was essentially an invitation to surrender humanity's independence in exchange for protection and prosperity. It was more sophisticated than the approach, but the end result would be the same. Human civilization would cease to exist as a truly independent entity. "We appreciate the offer, first speaker, but humanity values its independence. We're interested in mutual cooperation rather than absorption. His expression remained neutral, but the two officials accompanying him exchanged what might have been concerned glances. Independence is a challenging path for young civilizations. The galaxy can be a dangerous place for those without proper guidance. Admiral felt compelled to speak. We've learned to handle dangerous situations. Yes, your victory over the demonstrated remarkable tactical innovation. However, they were primitive compared to the threats that exist in the deeper galaxy. There are powers out there that make the Empire look like a minor inconvenience. President maintained her calm demeanor. Are you threatening us, first speaker? Not at all. The hegemony believes in peaceful coexistence whenever possible. I am simply providing information about galactic realities that your species may not yet understand. Over the next 3 days, the negotiations continued. The hegemony delegation made increasingly attractive offers while subtly hinting at the dangers that awaited unprotected civilizations. They spoke of ancient machine intelligences that consumed entire star systems, nomadic raiders that could outfight any conventional military force, and cosmic phenomena that required advanced technology to survive. Meanwhile, Earth's leadership held continuous strategy sessions. The intelligence reports from other civilizations painted a picture of the hegemony as a generally benevolent but ultimately controlling alliance. Member species enjoyed prosperity and security, but they gradually lost their unique cultures and became indistinguishable parts of a larger whole. Doctor, now serving as Earth's chief advisor, presented his analysis to the Emergency Council. The hegemony operates on a multi-generational timescale. They don't conquer civilizations, they absorb them. It might take centuries, but the end result is the same. What about the threats they mentioned? President asked. Are they real? Oh, they're absolutely real. The galaxy is full of dangerous forces that could destroy humanity if we encountered them unprepared. But joining the hegemony means accepting that we'll never be strong enough to face those threats ourselves. Admiral leaned back in his chair. So we're choosing between probable absorption by the hegemony and possible destruction by unknown threats. That's one way to look at it, Doctor agreed. But there's a third option. We could build our own alliances with civilizations that value independence. The Cetacean Alliance, for example, has managed to remain free for centuries. Ambassador Park nodded. I've been in contact with representatives from several smaller civilizations. Many of them are interested in forming mutual defense pacts that don't require surrendering sovereignty. The debate continued for hours. Some argued that humanity wasn't ready to face galactic threats alone. Others insisted that independence was worth any risk. The decision would shape the future of human civilization for generations to come. President finally called for a vote among Earth's Leadership Council. The result was narrow but decisive. Humanity would decline the hegemony's offer and chart its own course among the stars. The response to first speaker was delivered with all appropriate diplomatic courtesy. President thanked the hegemony for their generous offer, but explained that humanity preferred to maintain its independence while building friendly relationships with all peaceful civilizations. Received the news with apparent equanimity. We are disappointed, of course, but we respect your decision. Should you ever reconsider, the hegemony's offer will remain open. As the hegemony ships prepared to depart, requested a private meeting with President. When they were alone, his demeanor shifted slightly, becoming less formal and more personal. I feel compelled to offer a warning, he said quietly. The hegemony has survived for over 5,000 years by being patient and practical. We understand that young civilizations need to test their independence before accepting guidance. And others are not so understanding. Your destruction of the fleet has attracted attention from forces that view any display of strength as a challenge to be answered. Some of these forces make the look peaceful by comparison. President felt a chill despite the station's controlled environment. Are you saying we're going to be attacked? I'm saying that your species has announced its presence on the galactic stage in a very dramatic way. That announcement will have consequences. The hegemony could have shielded you from those consequences. But at the cost of our freedom. Freedom is meaningless to the dead, replied softly. Then, resuming his formal tone, he added, May your species find the strength to maintain both freedom and survival. After the hegemony delegation departed, Earth's government faced the reality of their decision. They had chosen independence, but that choice came with enormous risks. Somewhere in the galaxy, hostile forces were already learning about humanity's military capabilities and deciding how to respond. Admiral began the largest military buildup in human history. The quantum communication technology that had made the victory possible was rapidly expanded to link every human colony and military installation. The plasma lance weapons were mass-produced and installed on thousands of new warships. But the most important development was the formation of the Free Stars Alliance. Within months of declining the hegemony's offer, Earth had signed mutual defense pacts with 17 independent civilizations. The alliance was built on principles of shared defense while maintaining individual sovereignty. Ambassador Park found herself traveling constantly between member worlds, helping to establish the political and military structures that would hold the alliance together. The Cetacean Alliance became a founding member, bringing their centuries of diplomatic experience to the new organization. Doctor led teams of scientists in studying captured technology and analyzing intelligence about the various threats the hegemony had mentioned. What they discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. The galaxy was indeed full of hostile forces, but most of them had never encountered coordinated resistance from multiple independent civilizations. As Earth's first year as a galactic power drew to a close, humanity had established itself as the leader of a growing coalition of free civilizations. The Free Stars Alliance now included 26 member species and controlled over 90 star systems. But in the depths of space, ancient sensors had detected the energy signatures from the fleet's destruction. Computer systems that had been dormant began to activate, and mechanical minds that had forgotten what emotions felt like began to experience something very much like curiosity. The galaxy was about to become a much more dangerous place. 2 years after the destruction of the fleet, Doctor stood in the observation deck of Research Station Prometheus, humanity's most advanced deep space facility. The station orbited a neutron star in the Veil Nebula, far from any inhabited systems. Here, Earth's best scientists worked on projects too dangerous to conduct near populated worlds. The alert had come in 3 days ago from the automated monitoring stations positioned throughout Free Stars Alliance territory. Something was moving in the void between galaxies, something massive enough to affect gravitational measurements across multiple star systems. "Show me the latest readings," said to her AI assistant. The holographic display activated, showing a three-dimensional map of local space. Red indicators marked the positions of the mysterious objects, which appeared to be artificial constructs moving at impossible speeds toward the galactic rim. Analysis confirms 12 distinct objects, each approximately 50 kilometers in length, the AI reported in its neutral voice. Their acceleration patterns suggest technology far beyond current understanding. Estimated time to reach Alliance territory, 14 standard days. Felt a cold fear settling in her stomach. The Free Stars Alliance had grown to include 41 species across 137 star systems. Their combined fleets numbered in the tens of thousands, and their technology had advanced significantly through shared research and development. But the objects approaching from extragalactic space represented something entirely outside their experience. Her communication device chimed with an emergency message from Earth. Admiral's image appeared on her personal screen, his expression grim. "We need you back here immediately. The Alliance Council is convening an emergency session, and we need your assessment of whatever's coming toward us." "Any word from the hegemony?" she asked. "That's part of the problem. They've gone completely silent. No response to any communications, and their border fleets have withdrawn to defensive positions around their core worlds." The journey from Prometheus Station to Earth took 36 hours using the fastest transport available. During the trip, reviewed all available data about the approaching objects. The more she learned, the more disturbed she became. The objects appeared to be ships of some kind, but they showed no signs of conventional propulsion. They simply moved through space as if the normal laws of physics didn't apply to them. Their hulls reflected no light and absorbed all scanning attempts. Most disturbing of all, they had emerged from the void between galaxies, suggesting they had traveled distances that should have taken millions of years. Earth's command center had been transformed into a massive coordination hub for the Alliance military. Representatives from dozens of species worked alongside human officers, their varied biology accommodated by environmental suits and translation devices. The diversity that had once seemed so exotic to humanity now felt reassuringly familiar. President, now in her second term, stood before a holographic display showing the positions of Alliance fleets throughout their territory. The military buildup of the past 2 years had been impressive, but everyone in the room understood they might be facing something beyond their ability to resist. "Report," she said as entered the briefing room. "The objects are artificial, definitely ships of some kind," began. "But they're unlike anything we've encountered. Their technology appears to operate on principles we don't understand." Admiral pointed to the tactical display. "Our best analysts estimate they could reach the outer colonies in less than 2 weeks. We need to know if they're hostile." "Have there been any attempts at communication?" asked. Ambassador Park stepped forward. "We've tried every protocol we know. Standard galactic languages, mathematical sequences, even the first contact procedures that worked with other species. No response." Dr. Now Earth's senior advisor activated his own display. "I've been researching historical records from the oldest Alliance member civilizations. There are legends among several species about ancient machines that periodically sweep through the galaxy." "Legends?" President asked skeptically. "The archives mention the silent harvest that occurs every few million years. The historical records speak of star killers from the deep void. Most of the stories were dismissed as mythology until now." Studied the ancient texts displayed on screen. "What do these legends say about the purpose of these machines?" "That varies, but there are common themes. They appear, destroy advanced civilizations, and then disappear back into the void. Some accounts suggest they're seeking something specific, but there's no consensus on what." The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications. They weren't just facing an unknown enemy. They might be confronting an ancient force that had been destroying civilizations for millions of years. Admiral broke the silence. "Regardless of their purpose, we need to be ready for the possibility of combat. I'm repositioning our fleets to defensive positions around key systems." "What about evacuation protocols?" President asked. "We're developing contingency plans, but moving entire planetary populations would take months. We don't have that kind of time." Felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. As the lead researcher into advanced weapons technology, she would be expected to find a way to defeat an enemy that might be technologically superior to anything the galaxy had ever known. Over the next week, the Free Stars Alliance mobilized everything they had. Ships from dozens of species converged on strategic positions. Scientists shared every piece of relevant research. Emergency production facilities worked around the clock to build additional weapons and defensive systems. But despite their efforts, everyone understood they were preparing to fight an enemy about which they knew almost nothing. The first contact came sooner than expected. One of the ancient ships appeared at the edge of the Altair system without any warning. Long-range sensors detected it when it was still several billion kilometers away, but it had somehow bypassed all the early warning stations. The local defense fleet, consisting of 200 Alliance warships, moved to intercept. Watched the engagement from Earth's command center, the tactical data transmitted in real time through the quantum communication network. The ancient ship made no attempt to communicate or acknowledge the approaching fleet. When the Alliance vessels closed to weapons range, they opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and particle beams struck the alien craft in coordinated salvos. The weapons had no effect. The ancient ship's hull absorbed the energy without showing any signs of damage. Worse, it didn't even seem to register the attacks as hostile. Then the ancient ship responded. A wave of some kind of energy erupted from the alien vessel, washing over the Alliance fleet. Watched in horror as 200 warships simply stopped working. Their engines died, their weapons powered down, and their life support systems began to fail. The ancient ship then did something that chilled everyone watching. It began systematically harvesting the disabled vessels, pulling them into some kind of collection bay within its massive hull. The crews aboard those ships were still alive, still sending desperate communications, but there was nothing anyone could do to help them. Within an hour, the ancient ship had collected every vessel in the fleet and departed the system, as suddenly as it had arrived. 200 ships and their crews had been taken without any apparent effort on the part of the attacker. The implications were devastating. If the Alliance's most powerful weapons had no effect on the ancient ships, how could they possibly defend their civilizations? Emergency sessions convened across Alliance space as leaders tried to develop new strategies. Some advocated immediate evacuation of all populated worlds. Others wanted to attempt communication through more sophisticated methods. A few suggested surrendering and hopping for mercy. Found herself working with Doctor and a team of the Alliance's best scientists, desperately searching for any weakness in the ancient technology. They analyzed every second of sensor data from the Altair engagement, looking for any clue about how the ships operated. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Na, a researcher from the Hive Collective, noticed something in the energy signature readings that everyone else had missed. The harvesting beam shows quantum fluctuations consistent with matter conversion technology, she explained to the assembled team. But the pattern suggests it's specifically calibrated for metallic structures. Leaned forward, studying the data. You think they're only interested in our ships? More than that, I think they're only interested in advanced technology. The energy signature shows selective targeting of complex systems while ignoring biological matter. Doctor's eyes widened with understanding. That would explain the legends. They're not trying to wipe out civilizations, they're harvesting advanced technology. The implications were enormous. If the ancient machines were only interested in technology, that might explain why they appeared every few million years. They waited for civilizations to develop sufficiently advanced technology, then harvested it and moved on. But that doesn't help us defend ourselves, pointed out. We can't fight them without our technology, and they can apparently take our technology whenever they want. The discussion was interrupted by urgent alerts from the outer monitoring stations. All 11 remaining ancient ships had suddenly changed course. Instead of continuing their steady approach toward Alliance territory, they were now accelerating directly toward Earth. Admiral's image appeared on every communication screen in the command center. All fleets converge on Sol system immediately. Whatever they want, they're coming straight for us. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of desperate activity. Every available Alliance warship raced toward Earth. Evacuation shuttles began moving essential personnel and irreplaceable cultural artifacts to hidden locations throughout the outer colonies. Scientists worked frantically to develop some kind of defense against the approaching threat. Barely slept during those 3 days. Her team tested dozens of theoretical weapons, looking for anything that might affect the ancient ships. Most of their ideas were useless, but a few showed promise. What if we don't try to destroy them? She suggested during one late-night brainstorming session. What if we try to understand what they're really after? Doctor looked up from his analysis of the ancient legends. What do you mean? Every legend mentions that they eventually leave. They don't stay to occupy territory or establish control. They take what they want and go back to wherever they came from. So you think if we give them what they want, they'll leave us alone? Nodded slowly. It's possible, but we need to figure out what they consider valuable enough to harvest. The answer came from an unexpected source. As the ancient ships entered the Sol system, they completely ignored the massive Alliance fleet that had gathered to defend Earth. Instead, they headed directly toward a specific location, the asteroid belt research stations where humanity conducted its most advanced technological experiments. They're not interested in our fleets, realized. They're interested in our research facilities. The ancient ships began systematically harvesting the research stations, using the same energy beam that had disabled the fleet at Altair. But this time, his team was ready with sensors specifically designed to analyze the harvesting process. They're not just taking the technology, Dr. Na reported excitedly. They're downloading the research data, all of it. Felt a sudden inspiration. What if we offered them a trade? A trade, Admiral's voice carried disbelief. We have nothing they can't just take. Actually, we do. We have something they can't harvest with their beams, information that only exists in biological minds. His plan was desperate, but it was the only option they had. She would attempt to communicate with the ancient ships by transmitting not just data, but the context and reasoning behind humanity's technological development. Instead of sending simple mathematical sequences or linguistic patterns, she transmitted the complete history of human scientific development. The breakthrough moments, the failed experiments, the creative leaps that had led to major discoveries. Most importantly, she included the collaborative research that had emerged from the Free Stars Alliance. For the first time since entering the galaxy, one of the ancient ships responded. The communication came not through conventional channels, but directly into the minds of every sentient being in the Sol system. The voice was vast and ancient, carrying the weight of millions of years. You are different. Your technology grows through cooperation rather than conquest. This is unexpected. Speaking for all of humanity, replied through the same mental channel. We are willing to share our knowledge freely, but we ask that you spare our people and our worlds. Your request is considered. We seek knowledge, not destruction. Your species has developed unique approaches to technological integration. These approaches have value. The mental conversation continued for hours. Learned that the ancient machines were explorers from a galaxy that had died billions of years ago. They had been searching the universe for civilizations that might hold the key to preventing the heat death of all existence. Most species develop technology through conflict and domination, the ancient voice explained. Such approaches lead to rapid advancement but ultimate self-destruction. Your alliance represents a different path. In the end, the ancient ships agreed to this proposal. They would take copies of Alliance technology and research data, but they would leave the civilizations intact. In exchange, the Alliance would continue their collaborative research and share significant breakthroughs with the ancient machines. We will return periodically to observe your progress, the ancient voice warned. Should your species abandon cooperation in favor of conquest, we will harvest everything and move on. As the ancient ships departed Sol system, carrying vast amounts of technological data, but leaving the Alliance intact, realized that humanity had passed a test they hadn't even known they were taking. The galaxy was full of dangers, but it was also full of opportunities for those wise enough to choose cooperation over conquest. The Free Stars Alliance had proven that different species could work together to achieve things none could accomplish alone. And somewhere in the depths of space, ancient machines carried that proof to other galaxies, spreading hope that perhaps the universe itself might survive its ultimate challenges. The price of survival had been wisdom, and humanity had proven they could afford it.